This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
And welcome back, everyone. Something holding you back right now? Maybe you have some dreams, aspirations, goals. You're not meeting them. You're not really sure why it's not happening. Wouldn't it be great to almost turn a key, hypothetically speaking here, and unlock the potential you have inside as a leader, as a teacher, as somebody that is an expert in your field? But it hasn't happened yet. And wouldn't it be great to understand who you really are? I bet if we ask that question of 100 people, many can't answer. Who are you? Figure out who you are, who others are, kind of read them, get some baseline information there so you can better interact with them professionally and personally. That is all possible with a personality process our next guest has developed, PEP. We're going to learn about that and so much more. She is the owner, counselor, author at Progressive Edge Plus NLP, and she's Nadine Hanchar, and she joins us on the program today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
I'm intrigued to learn more about this thing called PEP. And this is something you developed over years. Do I have that right?
Yes, you do. So I developed it starting way back in the 80s and have been using it ever since, really.
So is this the starting point here? Is this something where you determine what somebody's strengths are?
Well, it's a little more than that. Yes, there is a form that they fill out. It's an evaluation form, and it tells me how they fit into the 4 zones. There are 4 zones. So there's the environmental zone, which is the one where this is how your environment affects you. There's the communication zone. This is the major part of your personality that actually, this is how you interpret the information coming to you. This is how you give communication. This is where you make your decisions. This is how you learn. Then there's the challenge zone, and that's where what happens when you get really stressed out and you go into that particular zone. And it usually gets quite bent out of shape when you're stressed. And so how to get out of that place of being bent out of shape. And then you have your security zone. So that's the security is what you do to create security in your life, but also what happens when you're feeling a lack of confidence in that moment, and how does that affect you? And so it really is 4 zones and 4 components. And so when you tell me which components go into which zones, it tells me a lot about you, and I can help you to be able to be more in balance.
So the last one, the security zone, as I understand it, most everything we do or things that are holding us back, it's because our subconscious wants to keep us safe. That's what we want. That's why we don't make a lot of changes, because it's safe being over here without the change. It might be uncomfortable, but it's a known entity. So I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, even though it's not the right thing for me, because I feel safe. Is that sort of the security zone?
Well, I mean, it could be the security zone. It could also be, a belief that you have about things that isn't working very well for you.
Sure.
So, there's a lot of different things that we can cover depending on how they're affecting you. It's also a way of knowing yourself better. And because every relationship we have is actually based on our relationship to ourselves. So if we don't have a good relationship with self, then we don't really have a good relationship with anyone.
Let's put the microscope on that one for a second.
Sure.
It's often been said that you can't really love others until you truly love yourself. And many of us don't know until we know, myself included. Didn't really realize I didn't really love myself until I did some work, shadow work, etc., and figured that out. Um, that sounds like what you're talking about. Until you really know who you are, you really can't navigate relationships, life in general, until you have a good sense of who you are. Does that sound right?
That is true because what happens is that you'll get triggered,
Mm,
yourself will get triggered, and then you'll react from that triggered place. And that isn't necessarily who you are, but it is who you are when you get triggered.
yep.
And so, being able to stay more in a very balanced place and understand what happens and how to tell if you're starting to go out of balance. And most people, as much as they think that they know how that happens, quite often they don't really know how that happens.
You know, testament to what you're talking about. This exercise, I've done it without even knowing I was doing it in a group I'm part of. And look around the room, 10 people. It's uncomfortable, but we needed to identify things we don't really like about them or things that we think they should change. And after we went around the room, picking those things out, we all did it. Then it was revealed, oh, those things that you mentioned, those are the things you don't like in yourself. And that was a wake up.
Well, and that's really what the PEP personality process really helps with people is it gives them a little bit of a wake up on certain areas, and it
Mm.
also helps them to understand what their strengths are, and what to do in order to bring themselves into a more balanced place in all four zones.
How did this happen for you? Developing this personality program, this process, becoming a counselor, helping people move their lives forward. Take us through your journey from the beginning.
Well, it just kind of happened as what as I guess I could say. Literally, I had people ask me questions about what to do about certain things ever since I was in my teens. So, and I've always been interested in human behavior and why humans do what they do. So, I started looking into this kind of thing when I was like 14, 15 years old, which is quite young for most
Sure.
people to get into doing that kind of thing. And then it just evolved, really. I just started taking courses that interested me, and I was planning on doing things in a different way than it ended up happening. But I found out that there were certain techniques and certain things that help people more quickly and more efficiently. Um, and so I went in those directions instead of going the regular conventional
Mm.
methodology.
You've been at this for a long time. You're a
Mhm.
counselor, consultant, facilitator, international best-selling author. We're going to get to that in just a moment. Yeah, almost 4 decades of experience in helping people. Nadine, what is it about the human mind that intrigues you? How would you even explain that?
I don't know how to explain it other than to say that I am fascinated by what makes people tick.
Yeah.
What causes someone to do uh, something that's maybe not really
Best for them.
of or best for them or
Yeah.
whatever, yeah. And
Mm.
how to get them to see it from a different perspective.
Do you believe that a lot of the stuff that challenges us is the stuff that came from our childhood? You know, we call them many times traumas. I call them little T traumas, big T traumas. The big T, the obvious ones, an accident, passing of a loved one, etc. The little T traumas could be that one day your best friend flat left you on the playground. You're 7 years old. You know, that's major for you. Got bullied, or whatever it might be. Do you believe that a lot of this is writing in our subconscious?
Absolutely. I mean, there are things that happened in that happened in our childhood that do affect us for life. It doesn't mean that you can't grow beyond that. It doesn't mean that you can't actually heal that. Um, it does mean that you do have to admit that there has been something that's happened, um, which a lot of people don't want to do. It's kind of an interesting thing. A lot
Yeah,
of people don't want to think that they can be, that something in their childhood could affect them today, but that is a reality, and it's often the start of a chain of events, actually.
sure. Or even realizing that that little thing, if you even remember it from your childhood, could be the thing that's holding you back from, let's say, the right relationships or the right type of work, or realizing what your purpose is. That some believe, myself included, we were given a certain talent. We were given something, when we were born or before. And that's why we're here to share it with others. Doesn't mean you do it for free, but it's something you have some, you were given something, but you have to figure out what it is. And once you figure out what it is, life changes for you. You feel fantastic. It feels like this is the way it's supposed to be. But you could be held back from that and not even know it, right?
Yes, that's true. That's
Mm.
true.
Can you uncover that with BEP?
Well, I mean, it really depends on the person and where they're at when they come in, and what if they're open to learning about themselves, if they're willing to look at, where the soft spots are. Um, not everyone is willing to look at those soft spots, but
Mm.
certainly if they are, I'd be happy to help them.
How do you define what the soft spot is?
Well, that oftentimes comes through questioning. And so I question people in a bit of a different way. First of all, I go through their pet personality process with them, and I explain it, and see, does it fit for them? Does it resonate with them? Is there any area where they're like, no, that's not me at all? Um, and not very often that happens.
Mm.
But there's always the chance. Um, so I use a lot of different methods, but I use the methods that work for that particular person. So that's really, what I ask them or how I ask them or what direction I go with
Mm.
them really determines on how they're answering things as I ask questions.
When you're working with somebody using PEP, are there epiphanies? Do people have these like, oh wow moments?
Well, some of them will they'll say things to me like, so like, are you like psychic?
Mm.
Or they'll say things like, uh, how do you know that about me? Have you been following me? So
Mm.
some of it can be a little bit like,
Revealing.
how do you know that?
Does
Uh,
it does it that being said, I don't want anybody to be alarmed here. It's not like you can find out deep personal details and information during the process, right? I just want to get that out of the way. Or can you?
well, it does depend on how much the person is willing to say. So,
Sure.
I mean, I'm saying things and getting feedback from them, and they're getting feedback from me, and
Yep. Yep.
the back, it's a conversation.
Gotcha. Well, it's almost, along the lines of hypnotherapy, which I found as a modality was impactful. People think that there's mind control going on, and you'll be able, the practitioner can come up with certain things from your mind and your credit card numbers and personal things. No, only if you want them to know. You have to, nobody can pull that info out of you. You have to be wanting to share it. So I have to imagine with PEP, unless you want to share it, you don't have to share it. So that's your choice. That's up to you. It's as deep as you want to go. But that doesn't mean if you don't go deep, it's not going to be impactful. It's just, whatever level you want to be at, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, and you learn how to, if you go out of balance in any of those zones, how to get back into balance, right? I mean, I think the biggest thing that I teach people is how to get into balance when they wouldn't normally have that skill to do.
Let's let's look at that for a second. When we talk about balance, how do you define balance?
Okay. Well, there is a balanced outlook from each of the zones in each of the components. There is also an out of balance place in each of the zones in each of the with each of the components. So, um, and oftentimes the out of balance states actually show up in a way that isn't comfortable. So that might be the best way to describe it. Um, they're not really liking themselves when they're doing those things and they want to get out of those places.
Okay. And would balance also come under, the look of having some kind of rhythm in your life where if you don't get a full night of sleep all the time, you're going to feel off. If you're not eating properly, all the relationships, it's got to be like think of a car. If one of the wheels is out of balance, the car is going to be wobbling. It's not going to be moving forward in a comfortable direction. Is that all part of the balance too?
Absolutely, yeah. And it is true. There are some people that don't eat breakfast first. Let's just go there for a moment. And so when they don't eat breakfast, they think that they're being totally normal at work, and they don't understand that they're not being normal at work and that other people are actually suffering around them
Wow. Didn't think of
because
that.
because they're actually being kind of sharp and not so friendly.
Right.
uh,
Because they're
because
hangry. They're hangry, as they say.
they're angry, and so they don't notice that about themselves. And that, so once they are brought into their awareness, and they
Yep.
change that and check it out and see if that works. I had one fellow call me and say, I've never had so many people thanking me for having breakfast.
I believe you're the mirror. You hold the mirror up so we can realize this. Somebody could be going years without eating breakfast thinking, you know what, it's a good thing I'm fasting. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but maybe it doesn't support everyone. And maybe for you, you need to eat breakfast, but don't even realize it. Other people, it doesn't bother them. They don't need to eat breakfast. Tell me about your best-selling author. Tell me about that.
Well, I have written a book on the pet personality process. It's called Knowing Me, Knowing You, the Pet Personality Process. Um,
Hmm.
so that's one of the books that I've written. I've also co-authored with other authors several books. So, and some of those have gotten international recognition. So,
Love that title, Knowing Me, Knowing You. That goes back to what we said before. If you don't know you, you can't know others in the way that you should. And on your website, I want to share something I found, which I can't believe this gentleman said it. I'm talking about Charlie Chaplin,
mm,
the entertainer, comedian from the turn of the century, a few centuries back. And then I'm going to read his quote that's on your website. As I began to love myself, I found that anguish and emotional suffering were only warning signs that I was living against my own truth. So if we were to dissect that, he was struggling in being who he should be, his authentic self, i.e., living his purpose, because he didn't even know who he was. And this is somebody that was hugely successful. People still know his name to the day. He's been gone for years. He was in silent movies back
yeah.
then, and that was on his radar, and he figured that out back then. You could, Anybody could read that quote today and it would be amazingly relevant.
Mhm.
Wow. Says a lot right there. Uh, what else do you want people to know? I know you also do NLP, which is neuro linguistics programming, right?
Yes.
So that's all part of the counseling coaching side of you.
Yeah, so like I said, I went a different route than most people do. I got my meditation, did studies in meditation first, and then I moved into more um other skill sets like NLP.
Hmm. Meditation. Do you practice on a regular basis?
Yeah.
Wow. Um, I've been asking this question lately because I'm learning a lot about meditation. Well, I try to do it. I think, I'm getting better at it. Um, what amount of time when you do meditate, how much time do you do it for?
I do it for 20 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, there's no wrong answer. I'm just curious. I just love asking people, and the more and more you learn. Yeah, I once asked somebody who studied with monks in Tibet, and I asked him, how long does it take for you to get into a meditative? I couldn't even finish the sentence. And he said, 5 seconds. Like you're meditating in 5 seconds. So, it'd be great to get to that point, but work in progress. But would you say meditation is essential in our lives?
I think it's a powerful way of actually being in touch with yourself.
Hmm. Yeah, it goes right back to Charlie Chaplin's quote. As he began to love himself, how can you love yourself unless you know yourself? And that's essentially what we're doing with meditation, taking that time to quiet the mind and listen to what you got going on within.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Well, there were four questions that actually changed my life.
Please
So
share.
the first one was, what can I learn from this? The second one is, so um, what what would I do differently? Like, what would I change if this were to happen again?
Hmm.
The third one was, what's one positive thing I can take away from this? And then the fourth one is, how can I use this in my life?
Hearing that, and like many, I apply it to life, my life, everybody, yeah, your life, you, or you should. Um, it applies to everything. It applies to everything. And as much as it's painful to admit, when we go through adversity in life, and it's going to present, that's called life, saying that there is a lesson there sometimes is a little challenging to really accept, but there is. But there is, because it probably wouldn't have happened. Or even if it did, there is a takeaway for the future. So that's beautiful. Those four things, and we have a choice in everything, how we react to everything. We don't have a choice of what happens to us necessarily, but we can choose how we're going to react. And finding the positive in just what you said is one of those ways. Nadine, how do we connect with you? If somebody wants to learn more about PEP, NLP, how to maybe change their lives and maybe figure out who they are, how do we connect with you?
Well, my website is probably the best connection for me, which is progressiveplus.com.
Simple like that, Progressive Plus, and it's plus.com. If somebody has a question, do you have a free, say, discovery call?
They can certainly call and set up a get to know appointment.
Gotcha. Thank you for today and exposing us to something that's new that we've never heard of because you created it. It's so impactful just to figure out who you are. I'm getting better at knowing me, but I'm very gratified to say that now I know you and meeting you today. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I
We'll be right
appreciate
back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.